Hello everyone, I hope you had a good break. In New York Sangha, we are going into the memory lane. The day Catherine and Michelle and I went to see Todaichi, the big Buddha. And we were also talking about, in the large wooden structure that covers that big Buddha, Daibutsu, in Todaichi, one of the pillars has a little tunnel at the bottom of the pillar. And then traditionally people say if you get through, crawl through that little tunnel, it's a symbolic way of crossing into the other side. I have a very funny picture many years ago when I was 30 pounds lighter than I am now. I went there and I was able to crawl through the hole, the tunnel, and then someone took a picture of it. And I'm going to post that picture in the website alongside with this Kengon-kyo lecture series, maybe with another picture with all of us standing in front of the big Buddha. But anyway, we were also talking about, we all remember now that, that big Buddha is supposed to be Vairochana Buddha, the depiction of Vairochana Buddha. Vairochana Buddha is the symbolic way of talking about the immensity or immeasurability of the Dharmakaya. So that's why not only Todaichi but all over the places that was under the influence of Kengon-kyo and tried to depict it, the depiction of the world, Dharma world of Kengon-kyo into something visible. Many people tried, and I was pointing out all these sites on the lecture number one. But that's why everything is so immensely large. I think in those days, 1,000, 2,000 years ago, those depictions, people must have seen it in such awe, And it's quite incredible. In those days, people did have the technology to create such immense, structure. And of course, I might have mentioned this already, but the main character of this sutra, Kengon-kyo, is a Vairochana Buddha. In relationship to what I have said, the other sutras, in Mahayana sutras always has a speaker, main speaker. For instance, Prajnaparamita's main speaker is either Gautama Buddha or Subhuti, because Subhuti is the one of the top 10, traditionally said, top 10 Buddha's students. And then he was the one who understood Shunyata teaching most. So therefore, he is chosen to be by the creator of Shunyata teaching sutra, Prajnaparamita sutras, to be the main speaker. And interestingly, this Kengon-kyo chooses Samantabhadra Bodhisattva as a main speaker. And of course, scene by scene, there are some other leading speakers, but Samantabhadra is always there. The reason is that Samantabhadra actually does symbolizes action, function itself. So in this sutra, this function is very important. But it's a really interesting experience to actually go see the sites like, Todaichi in Nara. And then all of those description in rather kind of dry description, the letters and phrases in the sutra sometimes comes alive and almost like become a visceral experiences. So that was some portion of our chattering, so to speak, during the break time. So I go back to where we left off in the lecture one this morning. We were talking about the characteristic way of describing Buddha Dharma, what it isness portion in this sutra. And then I showed you this phrase, Jiji Hokkai, Ri Hokkai, Richi Muge Hokkai, Jiji Muge Hokkai. clarify and explain the concept. And this is some way of teaching established by Kengon School, Avatamsaka School in China. And also this is brought over to Japan as well. And currently, when I go to a lecture series on Avatamsaka Sutra offered by Kanla Queen in Todaiji Temple, we still actually study this teaching. And then out of that, I was developing into the actual manifestation in quotation, how this really is explained in Flower Adornment Sutra, Kengon-kyo. And then one of the characteristics is one is all is one. And also this one is all is one is a spatial explanation, but of course time and space is inseparable. So of course it includes expression of time. And when it's applied to expression of the time, it means beginning is ending, and also short time is long time, long time is short time. That type of expression. Then I was trying to bring about some examples, etc., etc. Now, one of my tasks in the lecture series is when we are talking about non-Dogen text, I always like to link it with Dogen's text. So until at this point, I like to show you a couple of things. First of all, I believe all of you who come to our lecture series have this copy of Shobogenzo Zuimonki. If you don't, please try to get one. But I have heard a printed version actually sold out, but it is possible to get electric version. But anyway, we've been reading one section every morning after Zazen. And then sometimes I receive the question about what we read each morning. And one of the sections we always receive the question about is, let's see, hold on. Sorry about that. If you do have this book, this starts with page 67. It's a book 2 of section 4. Sorry. Book 2 and section 4. In this section, Dogen and Ejo are having a conversation. First portion of this section. Dogen and Ejo are having a conversation. And it is the type of a question and answer. Ejo is really trying to clarify what he has understood about what the Buddha Dharma is. Or, how do you say? Deeper meaning of Buddha Dharma, shall we say, utilizing 2 cases from Shoyoroku, Book of Serenity. And then I like to, because of the time limitation, I just like to do only first portion of it. But just in case if some of the people in the audience doesn't have this book, I'm going to read it, okay? Page 67 at the bottom of the page, book 2, section 4, starts with, once Ejo asked the master, what is the meaning of not being blind to cause and effect? The master Dogen replied, not to drive cause and effect. Ejo asked, how can we drop off cause and effect? The master said, cause and effect are clearly manifested together at one time. Ejo said, if it is like that, how is the effect brought about? The master said, if it is like that, what about Nankin's cutting the cat? No one in assembly could speak. Nankin immediately cut the cat. Afterward, Zhaozhou took off his straw sandal, placed them on his head, and left. This was excellent action. I'm going to stop here because it's going into another segment. If you are not familiar with what Dogen and Ejo is talking about, And if you are not familiar with the Book of Serenity, Shoyoroku, this reading this with the translation, it makes no sense. So of course we do receive quite a few numbers of questions about this. Now I like to explain this, and I like to show you why I want to pull this out in the context of explaining what Kengon-kyo is talking about. So first of all, I need to show you the koan first. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to use the shared screen again. By the way, our group in New York has been going through koan study, and then so far spending some years, I did close commentaries on each koan in Shoyoroku, and I think we have done up to koan number 33 to 34, something like that. Currently, I'm considering to retranslate this offered translation into something our own. And then eventually we could really revive the koan study series. So eventually, maybe some months from now, you will be able to receive the announcement from us that koan study portion actually opened. But anyway, the problem with me is that there are only 1 or 2 English translations, and if you are trying to explain koan from those translations, it's not possible. So what I usually like to do is I want to show these koan from the original, and how we, as a Japanese Buddhist priest, as you know, Shoyoroku is a Japanese Soto school's koan book. As you probably know this, I think in America, when we say koan study, people tend to think it is something to do with the Rinzai school's way of studying koan. Rinzai school has their own textbook called Blue Cliff Record, Hekiganroku, or Mumonkan. Gateless gate, is that the English translation? Yes, but they are not our koan book. It's assembled and explained a completely different way. The direction they are trying to pull into the students to is almost oppositional to what Dogen likes to point out. So, when we do Hosenshiki, Shuso is supposed to be, this is not the case in Japan, but usually it is the case in American Zen community under the name of Soto School. Shuso is supposed to put out her or his favorite koan, but from Shoyoroku, Book of Serenity, not from Hekiganroku or Mumonkan, because Shoyoroku is edited and pointing to the direction of understanding of the Dharma in sync with Dogen. So please be careful about that. And then anyway, currently I only have this offered translation, so I keep explaining a little bit of discrepancy in the meaning and also translation. So the case, Honsoku, is talking about this way. When Baijan, I'm sorry, I'm going to use the Japanese pronunciation, Hyakujo lectured in the hall, there was always an old man who listened to the teaching and then dispersed with the crowd. Now, this case is described as Hyakujo's old fox, wild fox. And then, so immediately at the beginning of the koan, koan is basically indicating this is not the real story. Fox is in Chinese and particularly Japanese culture, it is regarded as a shapeshifter, and then also someone who kind of mischievously tricks people. And then sometimes it is a guardian for some specific type of positive energetic field. So when you go to Japan, there are lots of little shrine, which is usually called Oinari-san. And then they are revering some kind of shape of a fox, but that's the type of the foxtail we are talking about. We all know this is really like a folklore tale. So, when you see some koans, a koan gives you a little clue at the beginning saying, this is a metaphor. So, I have been in the occasions when some American Buddhist communities talking about this type of koan and taking this metaphor completely differently and seriously. They're spending so much time like, why fox? Etc., etc. But then this is actually just a way to say, this is a made-up story. And then what they are indicating here, in the first couple of lines, you can immediately tell, okay, so this is a metaphor. And then what happens is, when Hyakujo was reciting in his temple, when he gives the lecture, there's always a little old guy, which was a disguised form of actual fox, shape-shifted into old man and standing on the back and listening, and most possibly waiting for the opportunity to speak to Hyakujo in person. And that's the indication, the first line says. And then one day, he actually didn't leave, and in other words, waiting for the opportunity to speak to Hyakujo. And then Hyakujo then approached him and asked me, who is it standing there? Meaning, this shape-shifter is in a different kind of shape. But anyway, this old man, the shape of an old man, said, in antiquity, in the time of ancient, I'm sorry, this is misspelled, ancient Buddha Kashyapa, I lived on this mountain. Again, in translation, it really doesn't show, but in antiquity, in the time of ancient Buddha Kashyapa, is an imaginary time. This is our way, Buddhist way of talking about the beginningless beginning of the time. And so therefore, again, this is yet another way of saying, this is actually a metaphor, symbolic way of talking about something else. And then also, I lived on this mountain is the translation of juice, in another word here. This word Jew is not about lived in the mountain. This is meaning I headed this temple. And this mountain is actually a temple. It's not about actual mountain. So it's not talking about the fox lives in the mountain. It is about symbolic manner of someone saying, at the beginningless time, I was the abbot of this temple. And then, so you immediately know, okay, so this is not a real story, but something symbolic. And then a student asked, does a greatly cultivated man still fall into cause and effect or not? Now, the question is, this is the type of question and answer, student comes and asks the famous teacher important question. And so the question is, greatly cultivated man means completely enlightened man. So you are the head of this beautiful temple, so therefore you must be a really completed enlightened man. So does enlightened man still fall into cause and the effect? In another word, this is the type of understanding when you do something wrong, next moment you do get the, result of it. So in another word, if you do something bad, you fall into bad realm. So here, word is otsuru, this portion, raku, which means falling down, yes? And then to that question, he said, I answered him, he, meaning I, greatly enlightened person, does not fall into cause and effect. Again, in original, there's no he or I. So what he said was, furaku inga. This is a very important word here. The reason why we actually don't use the subject, of course, Sino-Japanese language, it is possible not to use subject and object syntax at all. But at the same time, in this poem, they really wanted to show the word furaku inga, and another word that comes later on as an answer, humai inga, as a combination. And that's why this furaku inga is important. Now, furaku inga, cause and result, yes? And fu raku is this falling portion, and fu is not. So not falling, not falling into cause and effect is okay, but not falling because of cause and effect. Or in another word, you fell from somewhere higher because of something you did. But if you're completely enlightened, even if you do something, you don't get that impact, so therefore you don't fall. In another word, you don't have to feel bad. Yes? And then by answering that, he actually fell into a wild fox body for 500 lives. Now, the reason he goes into animal field is, of course, old understanding or Abhidharma age of understanding of cause and effect. And then their kind of theory or theology also by their way of understanding the space and time. They understood you do something bad and next moment you fall into something bad. And then there's this six realm theory. So therefore there's a human realm. Underneath the human realm, there's an animal realm. So therefore there's a ranking, so to speak. So there's a human realm, and if you go up, there's a heavenly realm. And if you're human realm, and if you do something bad, and you fall down into animal realm. So that's the expression. So in other words, there's a movement between the sense of movement. First of all, there's a sense of movement about the time. You do this, and then next moment you do that. So in this understanding, time is flowing, time is moving in a linear way. And also there's a sense of moving that I am here on high up, but then I fall down into that lower realm. So therefore there's another sense of movement. But the question is, who actually have that sense of movement? Who creates the movement? It's actually in my mind. Yes? And then, so therefore, this fox person asked, Ittengo, now I ask the teacher, ask you, Hyakujo, please give me a turning word. In this translation, it's not very clear. It says, now I ask the teacher to turn a word in my behalf. But originally, it simply says, please, Osho-san, give me Ittengo. Ittengo is one turning word. I think all of us does understand this because all of us have some sort of experiences of someone says something at a certain particular moment, and then you feel, oh, that's right, you know. But of course, this certain particular word doesn't always work. It has to be some kind of ripe moment or some certain particular moment where we are in. And then this one certain particular phrase or word becomes like a wow, like awakening word. So that's called ittengo. And it's a quite, well used word. And then for this, Hyakujo answered, Humai Inga. So please take a look at this. Furaku Inga versus Humai Inga. And then this actually became ittengo and turned this person around. And then old man was greatly enlightened by this ittengo. So, what exactly is Humai Inga? So that was the question of Ejo's question. Ejo's question said, what is the meaning of not being blind to cause and effect? Is this book's translation of Humai Inga. It's here. And then you see it here. Humai Inga is very difficult to translate just as it is. But I can tell you, mai is originally the word to describe that, I think there's a word in English or Danish, the moment of either right before sunrise or right after the sunset. There's a moment when the light is so obscure, you can somehow see the shape, but can't really tell what it is. Blue light moment or something like that. There's an expression for that, yes? And then, so therefore, you are not particularly clear, but you are still aware. But it's saying, what it is saying is, who, my. So in another word, we are not completely blind about this. But what it is indicating is, yes, I'm aware of that, but I'm not affected by it. So in another word, my view of Buddha Dharma is not about I come up, I go down. It's not that. It's just about, according to what we really studied and learned from all of those Buddhist texts. Authentic Buddhist texts depicts what it is the moment by moment by moment by moment. Dogen describes this in both Genjo Koan and Uchi, but it is really about the completely cut out moment from past and future. But at the same time, this right moment includes entire past and then entire possibility of the future. That's the moment by moment by moment of experience is our life, and it's how this is made. So therefore, who decide the past? Because that was bad, I am in a bad situation. First of all, that was bad. Who decided that was bad or good? Your mind did. And then who decided, I am in this situation is bad and good? And then it's actually your mind decided. What is happening right now, right here, is just a manifestation of the entire universe, entire time, right now manifested as it is. To decide it is good or bad is your mind. So in that case, there's no falling, no rising, no good or bad. It's just this moment and this moment of decision making. So in that word, this man turned around. So that's the core portion of the teaching. It's a very short and succinct conversation, but it really shows what exactly Buddha Dharma and Buddha Way is, how it is, and how we should be. Why is this so important? Because many of us come to the Buddhism, not only Buddhism, but any religious or spiritual practices, because we have a sense of, well, I'm sick, or I'm in trouble, or I'm in suffering, I'm in pain, and I really need to do something about it. So we are trying to find the solution. And in many cases, we are still trapped into this sense of something bad happened in the past. So therefore, this is some kind of a consequence I'm receiving. I am in a bad situation. But if you really start to clarify Buddha Dharma, and then you really start to deepening into your practice and study, you really understand this is just a moment. So all you need to do is not being pulled back by this sense of resentment, but you just need to stand up now and do something that's something really wholesome. Well, at least we really don't know what is wholesome, what is not wholesome at this point. But right this moment, there must be something you can face toward the direction of the Dharma. So therefore, this type of teaching really leads people into the healing. So it gives me such great sense of solace and comfort whenever I'm kind of wrapped into this sense of resentment and remorse and etc. etc. So Buddhism is really always regarded as a medicine, ever since the beginning of it. And this is the type of the elements of the teaching that really becomes a medicine for everybody. So it's so important. So it is very important for us to really understand these koans. And then koan is basically conversation. So by these, our Dharma ancestors. But anyway, so upon that, I'm going to go back to Zuimonki. So Echo actually asked, what is the meaning of Humai Inga? Humai Inga. Trying to make it into English is always a little bit of a different from the original concept. So very often I don't translate. I just bring the concept as it is in the original word and then I explain. So then Dogen said, Hudo Inga. It is for this book translated as not to drive cause and effect. I'm not particularly sure if Okumura Roshi himself wanted this translation. Maybe this was a choice by the editor or proofreaders. I'm not sure if the choice proofreaders and the editor was quite really in sync with what Okumura Roshi was trying to explain. But anyway, Fudo Inga, meaning Inga, in and ka, doesn't move. In, cause and effect or result, does not move. Fudo, not move, in and ka. So therefore, you can take it as you are not driven by in and ka. If you are driven by that, if you have a sense of driven by that, you really see the Buddha Dharma in a wrong way. Because Buddha Dharma is not like a linear timeline. And it is not really deciding what is good and what is bad. It's just a moment by moment by moment of scenery of your life. So that's why Dogen says, Fudo Inga. So you can say either you are not driven by cause and effect, or you don't try to drive cause and effect, or cause and effect are not two separate things that moves away or moves close. So this Fudo Inga is obviously very difficult to translate. And then Ejo asked, obviously, Ejo probably didn't understand this, and Ejo probably thought Fudo Inga, meaning you cannot get away from in and ka. Fudo is not moving, so therefore he probably misheard the intention of Dogen saying Fudo Inga, you can't get away from Inga. So he asked, how can we drop off cause and effect? And then in response to that, Dogen probably heard, okay, maybe there's a little bit of a gap between I tried to say and how Ejo took it. So Dogen explains, say, cause and effect are clearly manifested together at one time. This is Inga Rekizen, Ichijiken. It's original word. In another word, in and ken is clearly manifested as one thing. So in and ka is not a separated thing. Right here, right now, this moment, as Dogen says in Genjo Koan and Uji, everything is here as a manifestation. And then it is also includes all the possibility of the future, but it is just this moment of manifestation. In the following koan of Nankin's Cutting the Cat into Two, he also continues to explain this concept of no, very often our mind creates this dichotomy in the sense of space and time. But what exactly it is happening and how we exactly should be functioning is to understanding this is one non-dichotomical moment. And our mind tends to make it separation, but to try to bring it back into the alignment and just do something you can do now. So this is a very interesting portion. And then, this is exactly what we were hearing from, Avatamsaka Sūtra as well. So I thought this is very interesting to point it out. Now, one more quotation I like to show you is, I hope all of you probably had an access to Shobogenzo some years ago, few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, I'm sorry, Shumucho finally published, kind of like a semi-authorized version of English translation. Until then, we had to rely on individual translation by the people who don't really understand the text. So many of us were basically completely dependent on Okumura Roshi's translation. But of course, Okumura Roshi is a solo person, so he really can't do entire translation. But I think he was a part of a supervisory team for this 20 to 25 years long project by Soto School to translate, translated by I think some Japanologist. Maybe I'm not quite clear about that, but it's someone who's familiar with the Japanese language. It is not translated by Buddhist teacher. Then released the entire translation. So since then, it's been so much easier for me to quote from Shobogenzo. But if you do have your book, please open out of a 75 version of Shobogenzo. As you know, Shobogenzo have 75 version and also 12 version. Dogen's intention was to make it into 100, but unfortunately he died a little earlier before completing it. And then on the process of rediscovering Shobogenzo, there are lots of quite different portions of it. But currently we understand maybe 75 version we have now was intention of Dogen's way of placing fascicles in that order. And then he also wrote 12 more before he got sick and couldn't move. But most possibly those 12 are still draft stage, not particularly completely complete, and particularly because we see lots of quotation into it. But we combined it into 12 version, and then still include it as a whole collection of Shobogenzo. But anyway, I'm talking about the 75 version, and then fascicle number 63. I am going to open my text on the shared screen now. This one, I'm sorry, I'm going to confuse you a little bit, but originally it was called Hotsu Mujoshin. But on the process of editing current Shobo Genzo into 75 version, we changed, well, I'm not involved when I say we, but Soto school in general, changed it into Hotsu Bodaishin. Hotsu Mujoshin, Hotsu Bodaishin is basically same thing. Hotsu Mujoshin is basically Mujoshin is, and Bodaishin is bodhicitta. So arousing bodhicitta. So therefore, currently we have two different fascicles under the same title, Hotsu Bodaishin. So therefore, try not to confuse you. I keep calling this fascicle by Hotsu Mujoshin so that I can differentiate. But anyway, in this, you know, I really don't have a long time to explain everything, but I just want to point these things out. 仏道の大道は一陣の中にあり、大仙の共感あり、一陣の中に無料の諸仏がします。Translation here offered from Soto School's version. In the great way of Buddha Dharma, there is Chiliocosm of Sutra scrolls within a single dust mote. There are incalculable Buddhas within a single dust mote. Do you recognize? This is almost like a same complete cutout from, you know, Kengonkyo that I quoted as a typical expression of one is all is one. Macro is micro, micro is macro. And then, of course, in a typical Dogenist, you know, expression, this Sutra scroll is a translation of Kyokan, meaning entire teaching, entire Dharma. Yes. And then it also says, one blade of grass and one tree are both body and mind. Where the myriad Dharma do not arise, the one mind also does not arise. Where it is the real marks of the Dharma, it is the real mark of a single dust mote. Therefore, one mind is the Dharmas, and Dharmas are the one mind, are the entire body. This is Dogen's way of utilizing kind of more Zenish wording into the same expression. Another one, we were talking about, you know, time. So therefore, this moment is actually included all the moment. So in another word, we read short kalpasa, long kalpasa, short kalpasa, meaning this moment includes entirety. Entirety is represented, manifested in this right moment. And he says, thus, bringing forth the mind, this is Hoshin, practice, shugyo, bodai, body, meaning, you know, you start to clearly understand what it is, yes, and then nirvana, and finding such great solace in it, must be simultaneous with bringing forth practice, body and mind. In another word, he's saying, in English translation, it's a little kind of awkward, but he's saying the moment of bringing the force is simultaneously is nirvana. In another word, the moment you are doing, raising bodhicitta, moment you are practicing, moment you are clarifying body, moment of nirvana has everything in it simultaneously. So this is yet another complete in syncness with what Kengonkyo described Buddha Dharma, space and time, into Dogen's language. I find it so interesting. So, you know, I'm going to start to extend into Butsudo, our own practice. So how to be in it. And then Dogen describes it is 100,000 myriad instances of bringing forth, one instance of bringing forth the mind of body. Practice, verification are also like this. Again, in English translation, it's a little madarukoshi. But in the original Japanese, it says basically says this moment of raising bodhicitta. It's not just one moment of bringing bodhicitta. You just have to bring it, 100,000,000発. This is the expression Uchiyama Roshi utilizes all the time. 100,000,000発. I don't know what exactly mathematically it is, but just the numbers of time. That is actually our practice. And the moment you raise that, you actually practice, and then the moment is already the moment of enlightenment. Because the moment you raise that practice, bodhicitta, you bring yourself back into this complete merge or penetration, interrelationship with everything. So it's the moment of clarity, moment of enlightenment. But it doesn't last, because if you keep lasting it, you are trying to become like a petrified being, because it's constantly shifting, constantly moving. So therefore, you just have to do this all the time. That is our practice. So despite of this, to hear only the bringing forth of the mind of one bringing forth without further instances of bringing forth the mind, or that practices are incalculable, while the fruit of verification is one verification, this is not hearing the Buddha Dharma, is not knowing the Buddha Dharma, is not encountering Buddha Dharma. Again, in the English translation, it's so madarukoshi, but the original word is so clear and down to the point. It's basically saying, if you think Buddhist practices, once you raise the bodhicitta, and then eventually, you will walk up to enlightenment. That is not about Buddhism. If you think that way, if you're practicing that way, if you understand that way, that means you have not met the right Dharma. It's very interesting. He's so straightforward. I hope some of you are not offended by his remark, or remark by authentic Buddhist texts like Kengon-kyo, because in many cases we hear something differently from the type of the teachers who are not particularly well-studied teachers. So if you have heard about this for the first time, please don't feel offended. All you need to do is right here, right now, you can face to the right Dharma. Yes. 10,000,000発の発心, the bringing force of the mind of 1,000 millions instances, bringing force is definitely bringing force. One instance of bringing force of the mind. 1,000 millions of people's bringing forth the mind is bringing force of one bringing forth the mind. One bringing forth the mind is 1,000 millions instance of bringing forth the mind. Practice and verification and turning the Dharma also like this. Again, he's also stretching a little even wider. So you do 1,000 times, millions of times, 1,000 times, millions of times, but that is also all included in this one instance of raising bodhicitta. In another word, there's a description from other writing of Dogen about if you are someone who's familiar with archery, when you start to learn archery, you try and try and try and try and try, you keep missing the bullseye, and after 100 times, thousands of times, etc., someday you just hit the mark. But the hit the mark is not this hit the mark, but because this hit the mark actually includes 1,000 times it didn't hit the mark. It's the manifestation of the entire practice of yours. And in the same manner, he's also saying, if one person brings up the bodhicitta, it is a bringing bodhicitta of a whole bunch of the people. Because if you are really clearly understanding, you are really completely interrelated with everything and everyone, what you do also completely penetrate and at least has this rippling effect into your surrounding and beyond. So this is a wonderful description of what it is and how to be, and it's so in sync with what we read in Kengonkyo. So I really wanted to bring this up. One more, okay. One more example is yet another koans, which we in this New York group went through. This is a koan number 30 from Shoyoroku. This is not really a koan itself, but it's in the jishu, introduction portion. As you probably know, Shoyoroku, the way they present those conversation, dialogue between very often teacher and student, they usually offer some kind of introduction. This introduction is originally a translation of the original word, 主に示していわく, meaning this editor of this koan book is actually trying to explain this to a group of the people. This shu, this word, is the assembly in the monastery. So these are a group of the students who are studying under one particular teacher in one particular monastery. So this teacher shows up and then he gives you some kind of hints or guideline to how to read this dialogue, which is currently, fortunately, unfortunately, I think people use the word koan. I try not to use the word koan as much as possible because most of the people here think koan is some kind of a riddle, which Rinzai school folks utilizes. But we don't utilize this, short form that was cut out from a longer conversation from a transmission record, not as a riddle. This is some kind of a beautiful, wonderful nourishment for us to chew, taste, take in, experiment with, etc., etc. That's how we study koan. So this showing this koan actually gives the direction. So if you really start to see the difference between Hekiganroku and Shoyoroku, you see same koan is shared by those two books, but the first portion of introduction showing the assembly, the direction to read, is completely oppositional. So I think this is a very interesting portion. So sometimes I pay lots of attention to introduction and verse instead of main koan. And in this one, this is case number 30, Daizui Goka. In this version of the translation is translated as Daizui's ionic fire. What do you think, Michelle, when we actually tackle on the translation? We probably should change all the titles as well. Yeah. But anyway, introduction says, I kind of changed the translation already from the offered translation, which is kind of predominantly used among American students recently. But my wish is to work with Michelle, who's my great interpreter, translator, editor, everything. And then with her help, I think I can probably come up with a little more clearer translation directly from the original. So I'm going to read both. Offered translation, which is pretty predominant among the American students, says, obliterating all oppositions, cutting off both sides, smashing the mass of doubt, how does that require a single face? The capital is not an inch of a step away. The great mountain only weighs 3 pounds. But tell me, based on what order can one dare to speak this way? My additional explanatory translation is cutting off the dichotomy, just simply. Clarifying the principle, not the phrase can make you sway. Because if you really clarify the principle, you don't get swayed or affected by all the different way of understanding, a different way of wrong phrases to try to direct you to somewhere. But to do so, you really need to stay away from this sense of dichotomy and really clarify what it isness. And then, not the phrase can make you sway. And then getting to the capital is nothing but this one step by one step. This capital is actually translation of Xi'an, Chou'an, which was the capital of China for a long time, particularly in Song Dynasty era. And then Xi'an, Chou'an, is a capital, but the capital means in Buddhist terminology, it's this, where you are right here, right now. So therefore, capital is nothing but this one step by one step. In another word, what they are talking about is, you think there's a capital over there, Buddha Dharma over there. You know, by this time in Song Dynasty, there was a predominantly large group of the people thought Buddhism is some kind of phenomenon, noumenon. And there's some kind of a noumenon called Buddha nature. And then your practice to go through very difficult practice to someday see the noumenon and acquire it. But that's a complete separation, and actually it actually goes into completely opposite direction from the start of Buddha's teaching, as I mentioned in lecture 1 and lecture 2. So, but unfortunately, in Song Dynasty China, the predominantly so-called Buddhist teachers were leaned towards that type of a way of understanding. So therefore, this is a antidote to that predominant, I would say, misunderstanding of the Dharma. So he's saying, getting to capital does not mean capital is there and then you are approaching. The step by step, this step itself is the capital. And then great mountain is the accumulation of a 3 pounds mound of soil, which means one day you may be on the top of the mountain. But the moment of the top of the mountain actually starts from stepping into the first step of the slope of the mountain. And in another word, the moment standing on the top of the mountain, the possibility is already included into this one step. Otherwise, it's a separation, imagination, fantasy. Isn't that interesting? So even in this, short introduction, you see, well, I wouldn't call it as an influence directly by, Kengonkyo, but of course, including the Kengonkyo, all of those correct Dharma, so to speak, are really talking about the same thing. So in this way, examining all these authentic older texts, it actually makes it easier for you to read a little later Zen text as well, what the Zen text is trying to say. So again, this is quite in sync, and I think this is very interesting. Now, lastly, I also like to mention another very typical way of describing Buddha Dharma in Kengonkyo, Avatamsaka Sūtra, is this concept of this, our world is the manifestation of our mind. To talk about it, I'd like to point out some quotation. Let me show you on shared screen again. Hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to use the shared screen again. So just in case some of you still don't have the book, okay? This example comes from volume 1 again, page 477. Let me open that portion too. This is in the chapter 20, praise verses in Suyama Heaven Palace. This is a very well-known phrase, so you might have heard about that, even though you probably have never read Kengon-kyo, Avatamsaka Sūtra. You might have heard about this. The mind is like a master painter who is able to paint all the worlds. All of the five aggregates arise from it, and there is no dharma it does not create. Just as it is with the mind, so too it is with the Buddha. Just as it is with the Buddha, so too it is with beings. One should realize that Buddha and the mind both have an essential nature that is endless. If a person knows that it is the actions of the mind that everywhere create all worlds, then this person thereby sees the Buddha and completely understands Buddha's true nature. This is interesting. And also another one is chapter 22. I hope you already ordered or you already have book 2 too. This quotation from volume number 2, book 2, page 960. It's so much better if you do have your own book and open your book. And then this one says, everything throughout the three realms of existence is only mind. Sounds familiar? Mind only school is a Yogacara school, yes? Only mind, where the Tathagata has within this distinguished and expounded upon these 12 factors. This 12 factors is basically talking about 12 links of causation. And what they are talking about, each element of 12 links of causation is creation of the mind. Yes, 12 factors comprising the basis of existence. They, in every case, rely on a single thought and are established on just such a basis. It's a little difficult to understand from this English translation, but what they are talking about is this, particularly from the first one quotation. You do have heard about teaching of 5 skandhas, but just to clarify what 5 skandhas mean, 5 skandha is a creation of our world, in the sense that 5 skandha is Shiki, Ju, So, Gyo, Shiki. Yes, you've been reciting this every day from Heart Sutra, and the Heart Sutra says all of this is empty. Interestingly, but as our human experience, as someone who has this body and who's constantly changing this body and etc. etc. How we create our world is through this sensory system. First of all, Buddhism counts 6 sensory systems that includes mind. So eyes, nose, tongue, ears, tongue, body, sensory system, and also mind. There are 6 sensory systems, and through which we receive something, and then we create next portion, next portion, next portion, and then we create our world. I give you an example, very easy example. For instance, I'm doing this lecture series from my own living room in my apartment, and then several people is surrounding me in this living room, and then I'm facing. We are on the 4th floor of this 45-story building. It's a tall building. But we are luckily on the 4th floor facing this really large patio. And then this patio is actually on the 2nd floor. So therefore, there are lots of planted trees there on the patio. So when I look out of my window, I'm facing 42nd Street. But I don't get to see any kind of traffic at all. What we see is the head of the trees, and also I have a potted plants all over. So what I see is usually ocean of green. Yeah. So when I look at that, my eyes received an impact. So as soon as I recognize my eye receive impact, that means I separated myself as a static eye. Yes? And then this impact initially comes as just the impact to the eyes. And that's Ju portion. So in another word, me as a rupa, shiki, and me that plants and trees as a rupa make a contact as Ju. And then as soon as I started to create this separation between me versus others, in other words, subject and object, and I recognize subject and object impacted each other, then at that moment, there's something in my mind that starts to connect with this, and I say, oh, that is a plant, and that is a green plant. So create the conception, and that is the soul portion. By the way, this shiki, ju, so, this soul portion, in English, it's usually translated as a conception, something like that, yeah? That is the portion of opening the hand of thoughts. Okumura Roshi's book about Uchiyama Roshi's teaching, Uchiyama Roshi always talked about in our zazen, we keep opening the hand of the thought. This thought is a translation of this soul, shiki, ju, so. So in other words, as soon as it is not really possible to step away from the impact, because our sensory system is always kind of alert and it keeps taking in. Even though if we don't want to take in, noise and voice comes into our ear. So that portion, we really cannot have any kind of preventive measure. But when the concept arises, we can actually stop there before it develops into anything. But most of the time, there's this concept making, particularly in this case, it's giving a name. It always comes with some sort of memories with it. So there's some kind of movement from just a concept and just a impact, just concept. It starts to develop, move. So therefore, this is called gyo. Gyo is basically movement, action. And then what happens to me is there's a green. And then I have such fond memory of summer. I was born on summer solstice, June 21. And for many reasons, I think I always have a great time in summer. So this green color always connects with me with some specific memories of my childhood. I was so happy and so comfortable and on this beach and on this resort area, etc., etc. So when I start to do that in my mind, it really creates the concept, consciousness, that's shiki. It's much more elaborated picture. And then so therefore, when I see this, I'm actually not seeing the true nature of the green, but I'm actually seeing all of these attributes around. And this way, I'm creating my world. So in another word, it's not just this. When I face the wall, my wall is painted by Paul. Paul is a big fan of Matisse, and Matisse has that beautiful painting, which is actually in MoMA in New York, the Red Room. And then he examined the color, and then he really brought the same color of the, room paint on the Matisse's painting. So therefore, when I'm looking at the wall, I'm just not looking at the wall, but at the same time, all of those attributes are actually coming together. So therefore, but at the same time, when I'm sitting here and looking at that and looking at the wall, it's very different from, let's say, Michelle comes by a few times a week and joining me for the practice and then helping with the translation, etc., etc. When Michelle comes in, Michelle may be looking at the green completely differently. And also, Michelle may be looking at this red wall, thinking completely different things. So therefore, Michelle is in the same room, but in other words, different world. So this is the type of explanation they are trying to say. And also, it's very interesting that each one of us actually live in the same space, same time, but at the same time we are living in a completely different world. And of course, that's why if we completely believe in the world we created, and then sometimes we may be talking about the time and space we are living together, and of course the opinion for that time and place is different because how we view our time and places, each one of us are different. Of course there will be a conflict. And it can be more collective conflict between community versus community, or even country versus country, or allies vis-a-vis, etc. So this is the type of the teaching. Be careful with this. But at the same time, we cannot get away from this as a human being. Dogen has that the very famous fascicle in Shobo Genzo called Muchu Seppo. Muchu is within the dream. So in another word, our world we create is almost dreamlike. But if you are really understanding what we created is a creation of a mind, and if we keep, refreshing our mind by teaching, then we probably keep coming back to, I have so much projections, so much preconcepts, discrimination about the things. So each time I meet the occasion, meet the person, I will be very cautious with how I arise with this concept and creating the ideas and opinion. Before that, I can keep opening the hand with a thought and meet the situation, meet the person as it is as much as possible, like purely. So therefore, it is possible living in the dream, but still inside of the dream, we can expound and also practice the teaching. That's the fascicle Dogen's writing about. So in another word, it's a bit like an inevitable situation, but we can keep facing toward the Dharma, moment by moment by moment. This is in sync with the previous elements of the teaching I was talking about. Again, 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 again. When you step away, recognize, face back. You step away, recognize, face back. So, and then in that manner, in this curious human trajectory, we can still keep on facing towards the Dharma and then keep on functioning as a human being who also recognizes the Dharma. In another word, as Uchiyama Roshi says, this one out of all me, we can't step away from this body and mind. But at the same time, we can continue to practice and continue to study, continue to deeper clarify, then always have this element of all out of all me, bringing it back, bring it back, bring it back. So in that sense, this is a very interesting type of description. And also you can immediately tell this probably laid some kind of foundation for several centuries later. A group of the people started to focus on the element of Buddhist teaching, teaching this world is created by mind. So therefore, it is very important to keep checking up, in another word, your own mind to live wholesomely. And then eventually, this group of people will form, some sort of group and then it will eventually be called Yogacara teaching. But that's after Vasubandhu starts to appear in Dharma world. But anyway, it is very interesting. There's no direct link we can scientifically prove that the Yogacara teaching stemmed out of Avatamsaka Sūtra. But most of Buddhist scholars also do recognize the elements out of which Yogacara teaching is developing is already laid into this earlier sutra, Avatamsaka Sūtra. I think that's really amazing. Okay. Now, as a part of introduction, another thing I really need to talk about is how this Buddha Dharma is also explained as a Buddha way. I think this is quite kind of obvious. So therefore, this Buddha Dharma described in Avatamsaka Sūtra, and also I also mentioned the main speaker is Samantabhadra, really starts to explore into the portion of the action. And when we are talking about this interrelated origination, our action, our decision making for this moment, for the next moment, is also a very important factor into creating this, Hokkai Ingasho, Dharmakaya that is created by interrelated origination. Interrelated origination does include the cause is included by including our own decision making and action. So therefore, it is very important to understand that, so to speak, structure or trajectory of Buddha Dharma. So to be in it wholesomely, we really need to keep facing the direction of the Dharma, which is usually translated as Bodhisattva way. And so therefore, Avatamsaka Sūtra is really big on how Bodhisattva should behave, how Bodhisattva should continue to study, etc., etc. And then eventually even combines with this pre-existing sutra, Gandavyuha, at this point, chapter 39, entering into the Dharma world, as a story of Bodhisattva way. And before this chapter comes, there are several chapters. It's really totally focused on how the people who aspired to clarify more and more about the Buddha Dharma to be in this the Dharma. So from a Kegon school's theological way, it is described as a Tai So Yu. Tai means body, So means characteristics. In another word, in sync with the Prajnaparamita way of form is emptiness, emptiness, form. Tai is emptiness. So is rupa, shiki. And then in Prajnaparamita Sutra, that was composed a couple of 100 years before Avatamsaka Sutra. It says, Shikisokuze Kukusokuze Shiki is the depiction. But by Avatamsaka Sutra, it adds our own intention, our own action into this, completely interrelated, completely merging, constantly changing Buddha Dharma. So therefore, you portion is actually a function. It means function. So this Buddha Dharma is not really form and emptiness and emptiness and form, but also form and emptiness and function. Form, emptiness, function. And then in our in Avatamsaka language, it is Tai So Yu. So I think this is also a portion of the evolution Buddhism into a real practice instead of a conceptual understanding of it. So this is a bit like a warning to the people who come to the lecture series, wanting to become a very smart man who can talk about the Buddhism. But Buddhism is really not about something to talk about. It's something to live out. So it is the type of the teaching you clarify, but also it is also clarified by your meditation practice as well. So it's like in sync, together, hands on hands. And then whatever you started to learn or whatever arised as a wisdom, you have to live with that wisdom in a real life. And then real life actually manifests your understanding or manifested by your understanding or by the Buddha nature, or I could say the Hokkai. And then also, so therefore, this is actually a triangle, hand by hand, and it's also interpenetrated, three pillars, so to speak. But anyway, it is about you, about your life, about how you live life, and how you manifest your own life. So therefore, this explanation of shiki soku, shiki, ku, and function, in another word, tai, so, yo, is really interesting. It really starts to point out Buddhism is about our life. It is really about how we live. So I think I'm going to conclude this lecture at this point. And then when we meet in September, as you know, August is our reduced schedule week, month. So therefore, next time we meet for Avatamsaka Sutra, it will be September. We have a monthly intensive, and again for the European audience, I will divide it into 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, and I'll do 2 morning lectures. When we pick up where we leave off today, will be, I wanted to add one more thing in introduction, which is overview structure of this sutra. This sutra is so immense, but quite well edited in the form of almost like a long play. I would feel more inclined to say it is more like a grand opera. And then just like opera does, it's divided by, stage by stage and scene by scene. And then if you do understand how this stage moves and how the scene is moving, and then you recognize each scene has a theme. And then if you see it in a more pictorial image, I think it is helpful. So by next lecture, with the support of Michelle's linguistic support, I think I will make a pictorial image of this structure, and then we start from there. And then after we understand how this whole huge sutra is structured, then I think we are ready to start to read from chapter 1. And then when we do that, I'm trying to examine each chapter as close as possible, not probably by word, line by line, but at least I will try to illuminate the theme, synopsis, an important portion and putting out, and then try to connect with the Dogen study. So that's our plan. Gosh, lots of things to do. Okay, thank you very much for your patience, and thank you very much for staying through those lectures. And I look forward to seeing you in September. Thank you very much.